Hope you enjoyed this voyage into the night.
Was quite something, huh?
As I said at the beginning, the project began as a stage play, and it was performed in Berlin at the iconic Volksbühne. And I'm just curious to know why it is that you want to continue this project in a completely different medium.
I don't know. I was there in the theater piece, and I felt that we are missing something, you know, because the view, when the point of view on a theater play, the audience is there, and you just have the whole thing, and you cannot get closer to the actor, so the tension it's lower in some sense. It's different, a totally different approach. So I thought that here there could be a, you know, a nice, I don't know if it's nice the word, but I mean, could be an interesting approach to really get closer, to really push a little bit more, to put a little bit more friction, you know, because also in theater, actors are alone, you know. You can say whatever you want before the performance, but then they do what they want, what is not a very interesting thing, you know, for a filmmaker, because as a filmmaker you are used to control a little bit and to have these people, you know, and to put pressure on them. But then when you do it on theater, okay, they do whatever they want, and they are not very intelligent people in general, actors. So it means that, it means that their decisions, you know, and they are not only not intelligent, but they are even, you know, weak people, in the sense that, that they need the applause of the audience, you know. So it means that in every show, if they feel that they can not communicate something, because some people left, but who cares in cinema, because the work is done, you know, sure. And you know, and you will not change it, and you know, there is some kind of freedom. But in theater, no, because there is communication with the audience in real time. So it means that you know, they pray for the applause, for the communication with the audience. So they make it easy. And they make it easy, and they make it more simple always, and more basic, and more primitive, and you know, and it doesn't matter what you explain to them. They do what they want, and they, you know, stupid people. Well, this.
Hold on, but that's not fair.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's fair on theater, what I said. It's not fair here because they give a lot, and okay, it's another. But okay, in cinema, it's a little bit different. And then you can put a little bit more friction. And okay, there is some different tensions that are interesting, I think, when you talk about naked people, nudity, you know, it's still a difficult subject. So I thought that this point of view, and also this idea of off-screen things, you know, the point of view that it's all the time changing in the film. You never know if you are a witness, you are inside the action, in the heart of the action, in the middle, or that you are looking something, or that somebody else looking, or that the film is looking at you and projecting, you know, their own craziness on you, or you can use the film to your own thing. So this idea of voyeurism and exhibitionism is English. So voyeurism, exhibitionism, this tension, you know, in the film I think it's more rich and more interesting, and on the edit of the film, you can play a lot with this. So for me, it was totally different. I mean, the conception and here the idea of the physical aspect of the organic approach of the bodies a little bit, but also the people, you know, the real people that cannot escape to the camera, you know, they cannot escape to the insightful, you know, I don't know, point of view of the camera. That it's even better than the eyes, you know. I was there. I shoot the film. I am the director, and when I did the edit of the film, I saw that the camera, you know, was focusing on things that our human eyes are not even able to see, because we are there and you see the whole, like in theater. Your eyes will see the whole thing, you know. You are there and you feel the things that you think, and you are tired. And you have ideas, and you listen to the sound, and you know there is a lot of strange things. But the camera in itself, you know, it puts, you know, some kind of concentration on one frame, and it stays there without being tired, without listening to the sound, without having ideas. So sometimes filmmakers dismiss the power of this, And especially when it's linked with this subject, a little bit more tricky subject of, sex or desire or, I don't know, naked people. I think that the point of view of the camera puts something that it's very, very different. And I don't know, I trust the camera, I trust what it was in front of the camera. That a mix of the actors are a mix of professional people, technicians, and I don't know, it was quite crazy. I mean, quite, how to say, a performance, a real performance of on the sense that there was no representation. All my system is based on non-communication, on just not saying anything or not saying a lot of things to the actors, so they are there in a little bit of tension, and then simply they have to develop something. But here it's not so easy with this subject.
So it's almost like a live performance.
Yeah, it's a live performance.
So there is a...
Well, paradoxically, in theater nowadays, people is so hungry of the applause of the audience, and people is, it needs so much to communicate something, that they are more a slave of representation than the freedom you have on cinema, that you don't care about anything. I mean, well, obviously, there is a crew, and they shoot you, and, there is some kind of common artistic goal in general. But at the same time, it's a real performance because nobody cares about what you are doing. I mean, well, they are technicians. It's not the audience. The audience are you here, and it's, months later. So...
But this is what I mean about the interesting inverse, because you say that the actors were, want the applause and they want to do what they want, but you did something very perverse in Berlin where you turned down their microphones. So they were acting, but you could barely hear them.
Well, this was some of the points, because I hated them so much that, yeah. Here I love them in general, because here I choose them all. But in the theater play was very complicated because it was a big theater, so they imposed some actors. So in general, so I try to, to push them in a different ways. And one of the main critics on reviews on the theater play said 2 hours and a half of actors lost on stage. And I said, it was a criticism, it was a negative review, a negative review. But I said, fuck, it was exactly the sensation I was looking for. 2 hours of, okay, here it's a
success.
Yeah, it makes a sense of the sense of a performance. That, there is something that happens only once, that, you will never have it again. And okay, here it looks funny, but, well, in the conversation. But in the image, it was not so funny. I think, it was a little bit dark, for you, even, as a spectators or as an audience, it was not so funny. I mean, there was some tension, and it's a subject of desire. Nowadays, it's very, the film starts with some kind of innocent, pervert fiction of 18th century then. But then it goes to the really arbitrary and unfair and, some kind of objection. So I like to explore, this space and this freedom of fiction. That is still, I think, the space of total freedom where everything can be done there, and in fact, I think that it was created for this, just to be, fulfilled with whatever. I mean, there is a lot of other spaces to do more, more education or, morally, correct things.
But then why 18th century and not contemporary?
The film is contemporary in some sense.
Sure, but it's also a period piece.
Yeah, well, I don't know. At the beginning, this was one of my goals of the film. At the beginning, it's a fiction, but then it becomes a little bit more trash.
Of course.
No, slowly, gradually. What I personally like of the originality of the film is that at the beginning, okay, it's a fiction, kidnapping, some young nuns, whatever. I mean, and it's a little bit ridiculous and never progress, and it's just about talking. But then slowly, gradually, the action appears a little bit, and the gestures, the attitude of the people, there is more, some kind of more contemporary frustration. Really, it's not just a plot, it's not just a period film. in itself. But, the attitude of the actors, even if we are still in the same place, with the same costumes, with the same wigs, with the same everything, in the same forest, but there is something that changed progressively a little bit. And I like it, this. When I saw it, well, I did the film, but since you don't see the final film, you don't understand exactly what you are doing, because, I shoot with 3 cameras, a lot of rushes, a lot of chaotic stuff, so I had 300 hours of rushes. So since you don't have the final film, you don't understand, and this I think is quite visible. It's a little bit subtle, but visible. And at the very end, it's very, I don't know, it's very contemporary, People on the floor, and there is nothing else.
It's
and
like
everything.
the night after, right?
Yeah.
Or the morning after.
Well, I like that idea. Yeah. For me, it was the idea, the logic of the night, and the last shot of the film. It's very nice because, when you go to the discotheque, we all have experienced this on a Saturday night, whatever, and then you are inside a dark place, and it's the logic of the night, the distortions of the night, you desire, I don't know, moves and palpitations or moves or whatever. And you don't see exactly what and your perception, the logic of your perception is totally different. And then you get out of the place, of the whatever, a bar or a discotheque, and then you see the daylight. And then everything is over. And it doesn't matter, how much psychological effort you put, you can never come back.
And you might not feel so well.
Yeah, and you feel frustrated, and you feel that, what you lived before, it was very real, very organic, but at the same time, you cannot keep on with this sensation forever. Sure. It's a really night, psychological and aesthetically, night way of thinking and behaving. So you cannot transport this to the daylight. So the last shot of the film was a little bit, and the previous one, when the guy is, without the shirt and, just listening, if, the whole film was a dream or whatever, was this idea a little bit that the logic of the day impose, I don't know, some logic, that it's totally the opposite of the logic of the night. And you cannot merge both things. Yeah. So, I don't know. I like this idea, and to put it in this context of the 18th century with some kind of, I don't know, links with Marquis de Sade or all the literature of the 18th century. I thought this was a quite original thing. Okay.
Other questions for Albert?
Yeah, well.
Yes, in the back? How did you find the actors?
Well, it's a mix of different kinds of people. I mean, there is some professional actors. Maybe you notice Helmut Berger, that was Visconti actor. And
he was also in the theater.
Yeah, there was one theater actor, but then there is some technicians. The one, in fact, the 3 ones that make the most hardest things is the technicians of the film. I asked them to act on the film, maybe, I don't know, 1 week or 2 days or 1 day before the start of the shooting. And I never ask anybody to do anything. I mean, it was just, my system is a little bit chaotic. It's based on non-communication. It's, obviously they all knew what the film was about. But I never ask anybody to make strange things, except one. That is obviously the guy that people piss over him. That is a friend of mine, technician. And I asked him, do you mind if you go there and people do this? Because here it's quite it's quite simple, because there is only 2 people. But I had 300 hours of rushes. So it means that there was maybe 11, 12 people peeing over him, in a row. So it was not just the 2 you see here on the film. So the shooting was a little bit more, I don't know, more difficult. And this one, but it's a friend of mine, so no.
I don't think this has ever happened at TIFF before, but anyway.
No, but I mean, if I was an actor in a film of somebody else, I would be there like him. I mean, it's like, what I have to do, this, okay, no problem. I mean, I am here to do whatever.
Is he still your
Sorry? Yes, of course. And maybe he discovered some pleasure that, he didn't knew before. Yeah. Well, it's also, Marquis de Sade idea of, okay, there is the idea of totalitarianism of desire that is in Marquis de Sade, and it's very, But also in Marquis de Sade books, there is one moment where every character, starts to do some kind of strange practice, sometimes with violence, with some kind of... But then a lot of people find some kind of singular pleasure that didn't knew before. So sometimes, it's this tricky point of desire that if you don't try, I would not say it if you don't try, but I mean, if you are not in the mood or if you are not in the situation of dealing with this, you will never discover it, or you will never be able to think about it in a different way. So maybe you have, even if it's in a film, this is a ridiculous, it's not real life in some sense, because people is there for an artistic goal. But still, in this quite nice mood, well, friction mood, because, it's not so clear and not so easy to make this kind of things with normal people. But still, maybe you can, I don't know, there is something nice to even with a little bit of pain, there is, well, it's the subject of the film also. Pleasure and pain, there is the border between pleasure and pain. It's not so clear. You never understand. I don't know if the women, they are enjoying it with being weeping or not, or the men being, you never know. So, and it's part of the subject of the film in the sense that it's a cruising area. Cruising area, it means a cruising area. It means that you are there and, the arbitrary things happen. So it means that you are there to give, not to think about you. You are there and there is no more, handsome people or ugly people. There is no more old people or young people. There is no men or women. There is no more, servants or masters. The cruising area means that desire puts its practice in a such extreme way that it's not about what you think about yourself or your self-consciousness or egoism, or even that it's about giving, And there is one of the main characters of the film in the weeping scene that says, donner, donner, donner. No, it's about giving, not receiving. It's not about what it's, I don't know. Nowadays, a very, tricky subject about the Me Too and all these things about, your rights, your desires. No, here it's not about what you feel, what you think, what are your rights. It's about giving to the others. It's not about you. It's about the others. So a cruising area, in that sense, and nowadays it's a little bit more linked with the gay, thing. But you can imagine that it could also happen in a... So it means that you are not there to get your pleasure, get your rights, get your things, that to give it to others. So obviously it's an utopia, and it's a tricky utopia, and there is a lot of friction inside, of course. No, and we will not discuss this because it's a very long discussion.
It's a complicated one too, because there's the pressure,
yeah.
And you see that certain people don't succeed. So it's also about the failure of this utopia, which is also very much linked to the Enlightenment and all its contradictions.
Well, of course, because in the 18th century, it's the beginning of a lot of utopias, not only the sexual one, that it's a libertinage, but also the political one, the social, I don't know, on science too, a lot of utopias. So then, okay, there is some, you go further, but then you come back, after the, I don't know, on the political side with Napoleon, whatever. Also on the sexual side, We cannot compare our sexual lives nowadays of the sexual lives of people in the 60s, for example. So we can say that there is some kind of regression. Regression in English?
Regression, you can say.
Okay, so regression, so this is obvious. And John Waters, for example, because I did a conversation with John Waters in Locarno Film Festival, like 3 weeks ago, and we were discussing about this a little bit, and he wrote a nice book about all his experience, and it's not just published now, it's called Mr. Know-It-All, and he's against nostalgia, he doesn't want to accept that past times were always better or whatever. But in the book, it's true that it says that the only, in one chapter, that it's about sex, is it maybe the only thing that people, nowadays generations or younger generations nowadays cannot understand, how different it was in the past because of ads, obviously, and because of a lot of things. But how different it was in the past from now is that, sex in the past was so totally incredible. I mean, no, really. And sometimes when you read the book, you are shocked. For example, he explains that he was in a discotheque, it was like a bar, I don't know, nightclub in New York, and there was two restroom, yeah?
Washrooms,
Right, yeah, bathrooms. And there was two queues, queue. And one was always a lot of people, but you can get the shorter one going to the one that there was almost nobody in the queue. And because there was no bathroom, there was just somebody there, waiting for you to pee over him. So if you were able to do it, you can go faster, and it was quite easy. And this was on the 60s. I mean, a normal thing in New York. No. And he talks about some other places, and that there was even no bathrooms. I mean, there was always about... So this was... And he said, you cannot understand that in the 60s, everybody was fucking with, with somebody different 7 days, every week. But not only you, that we were more handsome, or that you were like a star, or a successful man, or whatever, or a woman, or whatever, a young person. No, everybody was fucking with somebody else, every day with a different person, 7 days per week. So people maybe cannot understand, how it was in the late 60s, no?
Sure, things changed. I mean, we also have to acknowledge that the AIDS epidemic changed a lot of that.
Yeah. But okay. But I mean, maybe there is, and the film, I think it touched a little bit the problematic of desire in very different ways. But one of these is this frustration. Obviously, there will always be, even on the 60s, of the utopia, of the happiness. Well, if there is happiness, then all the other problems, you can solve it easily. Because there is some kind of, I don't know, friendship or utopia, and, everything works in a nice way. But still, if we focus on this desire, we can all agree that it's a complex subject, because it's not...
You don't feel that much happiness here, though.
Yeah, because it's unfair. Desire is unfair. It's not about morals. It's not about... Maybe in the 60s, it's when we get closer to this idea that desire could be really fair. With this idea of there was no more, like in this cruising area, no more, ugly, handsome, old, young, women, men.
Egalitarian.
Yeah. So egalitarian, totally egalitarian. But still, I don't know if, after Freud, the problem is not so easy to solve, I think. And the film, it deals a little bit with all these such in a very, visual and very, I don't know, simple way. Very, like, I don't know, not. But some images are complex in some sense of the film, And the off-screen, it helps a little bit. Because the idea of the off-screen, of the sounds, of the ellipse, that you never know, a little bit the confusion of the point of view, but also that you never know, how far this goes, what is real, what is not real, what is a dream, what is just, your projections as spectators, but not only as a spectator, but as, some characters of the film. Because if you see the edit, it's very subtle of the film. So sometimes you see that somebody is looking something, and then, okay, you go closer, but it's not exactly the same as scene that you thought that you were looking, that this character was looking. So it looks like, but it's not exactly. So you never know exactly where you are, in this never-ending night. So for the reason, I think it's hallucinatory in some sense, because the edit, it's very well done, modestly, but it's very well done in a sense that it's getting closer to the truth, but you never get it. You never get the truth of the visual aspect, and you never get the truth. Obviously, there is some obvious things that you get the truth, and it's part of the provocation of the film. But there is some other moments that are more interesting. So that, what is this? I mean, I am hearing this. The sound, it doesn't correspond what you see, and maybe there is something, but somebody else there, and well, I don't know. I think the idea of a poem of the night, a poem about the night and the distortion of perception and the different logic of the perception of the night, I think that it applies very well, modestly again, to the images you see here. Not the film in itself, in the whole thing, but I mean the images. You know, to really try to get into the images. Sorry.
One last question.
What do you mean exactly? You mentioned exploring fiction. Yeah.
Friction, I think, no? Fiction or friction?
Yeah.
What did you say earlier, that this explores friction or fiction?
Both things in some sense. Well, it's a provocative, I don't know if it's provocative. The subject is provocative in itself. I mean, it's not the film. I mean, the film is just, try to, I don't know, to give something and to honestly, to try to explore a territory in a different way that has been done before. Because this mix of actors, it means that, you use fiction to create friction. This is a little bit the paradox. In the sense that, these people, they are not representing anything. They are not, because we discussed this with you in a conversation before, some days ago. For example, Pasolini film, Salo and all the, everybody, there was an artistic goal and everybody was serving this goal. And everybody agreed, and there was, an idea in the mind of Pasolini, and everybody has to, represent this idea in the film. Everybody was in the same direction to really put on images this idea. But not here. It's not possible anymore, this. Even, if obviously people is on the same artistic goal, people believes in this, whatever. But it's not so easy nowadays. Everybody in the crew, they have their own thinking about the subject. They have, because of the vanity of the social net thing or whatever, of the contemporary world. And so everybody thinks that they have their own opinion. In the past, it didn't happen like this. Nobody on the crew thought that, they had better ideas than Pasolini. But now it happens. What is interesting in some sense, because when you deal and you are an actor or you are a physical and psychological and a human being present in the shooting, okay, then maybe you have the right to some kind of I mean not say express, because if you don't want to go on the artistic goal of the film, okay, you can stay home. But at the same time, there is more, rebellion, a little bit, plays a role that puts some richness in the images of the film. And this it didn't happen in the past. I don't know. I wasn't there on the shooting, and I don't know. But I smell that it didn't happen in the past. So this rebellion aspect of nowadays, that everybody thinks that they have their own opinions, they have the right to express their own opinions or to feel it in a different way or to whatever. No, I don't know until which point. But I think this, and the film plays with this and creates, I don't know, this is an important, especially in the second part of the film. You see that the darkness of the film is about this. It's not about that there is a goal of saying that, okay, Marquis de Sade was a very transgressive guy compared with what we all agree, and obviously it's unacceptable. It's totally, the fiction, morally, the fiction of a Marquis de Sade is unacceptable in all ways. But it's not that being unacceptable in a theoretical way from a, following a writer of the past. Is that you have to create some kind of unacceptable things, obviously in a lighter way, but to make, people accept the unacceptable, imposing, abusing, with rebellion in a very, very, very slight way, but it's already more than in Pasolini times. So, and I think this is how to say, it's a dialectic work. It's very tricky from the moral point of view, but it's very rich on the artistic side. Because, these people, they rebel, but they rebel against themselves. In some self. It's not a rebellion that you are imposing. I never ask anybody to do anything. I never. It's only my friend, but it was funny. But I never ask anybody else to do, you have to be more explicit or not. Never. So it's in the mood of, of express yourself, as a human being in front of the camera, what is not so easy. And at the same time, how to say it? I am obliged to create some tensions, because without tension, images do not have energy, And you can go to all Hollywood films or whatever, because they are on representation. So if you don't create tension, if you don't go on the edge of, the possibility of the people rebelling against you, you will never. So it's a tricky point, because then, you cannot, you cannot, if you do it too much, then it's like, it's like that you are, you have a vision that people have to follow. So it's not the idea of this film, But it's, but if you don't create friction, it's banal representation either. So I don't know. It's a very, it will be a master class about, this strictly, perfect point that it's also morally difficult to find, but to define. But at the same time, it's enjoyable, even for actors, because it's playful in some sense.
It's like a happening.
It's a happening. This is exactly the definition. It's like a happening in the 60s. Okay, there is some hard experience. There is some nice things. There is some, unforgettable moments, but it's unique. It happened just once, and it's forever. And you keep it with you. There is nothing else. And then, it's recorded, but not as a documentary thing or as for the archive, but it's recorded, with the fiction goal that creates a little bit more of complexity, because it's not just that we are witness of a moment, but that we are trying to, to grow up with this moment and grow up in front of the camera, and to develop, and the process of growing up, it's recorded, and we can manipulate on the edit. But, it's not just doing witness. It is, you are part of it, even as an actor, You decide. Obviously, the edit will decide everything. But, as you have your part of rebellion, that it's possible, because, here, we don't prepare shots. It's 3 cameras. It's chaotic. It's a performance. So the possibility of rebellion, it's of the human beings, of the soul, real soul of people, it's alive. What it doesn't happen. This is a fucking paradox of a lot of, things that, apparently, they are doing something that, it's not the friction, it's not there or whatever, but in fact they are like, like chips, sheep, the sheep. That, is like a factory, it's like a capitalistic, that there is somebody that rules the thing in a capitalistic way. It's a film, and, some people that pays the people and they simply obey. But here it's not, it's the happening of the 60s, with the complexity of the edit, of the digital edit, with the complexity also of mixing actors and professional actors and non-professional actors, and, so, I don't know. And I think that the film reflects a little bit this richness, modestly, but not richness is not the word maybe, but diversity. Diversity of points of view inside the same, more or less, shared artistic goal.
I'm feeling some friction now. I think the theater staff is going to rebel if we don't vacate soon, as we're headed deep into the night. Okay. So we've run out of time. Albert, maybe we'd like to take some more questions outside, because I think there may be more. But thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for coming.